Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Chanel Cosette, and I'm a nutritional biochemist at XMD Wellness. Today, we're going to spend probably about 20 minutes together going through the real basics of GLP-1 peptide therapies, customized peptide therapies, titration strategies. We're going to talk about what GLP-1s are, how they work, and what that looks like when done correctly. I want this to seem more like a conversation between people who respect each other's intelligence, meaning I'm going to give you the science. I'm going to be honest with the things that we know, the things that we're still learning, and I'm going to skip some of the fluffy stuff and get right into some of the fun science behind GLP-1 peptides. But by the end of this class, you should really have a clear picture on what a GLP-1 protocol may look like, if it's right for you, and what to do next. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, I wanted to share some real stats because I think when we look at obesity, we think that obesity essentially means that somebody had a discipline problem or they're being lazy, they haven't tried all of the things. But when you look at the significant stats here in the United States, it really paints a picture of really the majority of Americans are struggling with some of the reasons why you might be on this call tonight. Diabetes prevalence, 38.4 million Americans. Obesity, over 40% of adults in the US have obesity, 9.4 have severe obesity. Metabolic syndrome, 33 to 42% of adults meet that criteria. Um, there's also some like overlap between obesity and just other comorbidities, things like high blood pressure, things like diabetes. And this trend has really been trending upwards for a really long time. But one of the stats I really want to focus on is this one, that 97 million Americans are in a pre-diet diabetic state. And I want to welcome all 97 million Americans into the metabolic shift. XMD Wellness is really flipping the script. We're really shifting that metabolic problem. In fact, there are only 5% of Americans who are even metabolically healthy, right? Like that is insane. Only 5% of Americans being metabolically healthy. And so I'm talking to the 95% of people out there tonight who are sitting there, and you may be sitting there and thinking, gosh, Chanel, this weight loss always sounded simple. It was a calories in, calories out equation. But maybe you've spent years in a system that kind of treated excess weight like a character flaw. Maybe you've been sitting in the doctor's office and you've been told just to try harder, eat less, work out more, when really maybe it wasn't calories in or calories out that failed you, but really working against your biology. I want to give you guys a little analogy here tonight. I want you to imagine your brain like a thermostat, one that's been preset to defend a certain body weight, right? So it controls hunger, hormones, metabolism, fat storage signals. When you diet aggressively, that thermostat, it doesn't just sit there. It fights back. It ramps up hunger, right? It slows down your metabolism. It makes food more mentally consuming. Your body is really doing exactly what it was designed to do, and it's to protect you from perceived starvation. So like when you think of that thermostat, and like gets really cold or gets really hot and it is struggling to keep that homeostasis, I want you to think of your body like that. Like every time you're dieting, every time you're going on a program, your body is trying to fight back to hit that homeostasis that you've set over however many years, decades that it has been. And so sometimes it really can feel impossible until now. And that is what how life-changing these GLP-1 peptides are. When we look at obesity, it is a neurobiological, it is hormonal, it is genetic, it is environmentally driven. It's incredibly complex. The reason GLP-1 medications have been such a significant development in medicine is that they work with your biology. They work at helping to make it to where your body isn't constantly going back to that weight set point that you've set. And in order to kind of lower the temperature, right? Bring it down, that set point down. Um, so when I talk about medical weight loss, I'm not talking about an aggressive diet. I'm really talking about biochemical support, and that is very different. And one of the things that we found is that by doing these GLP-1 peptides, diet and exercise become such an easier task, and it feels less of a chore and more of like you're excited to move this body that all of a sudden feels better, right? You're excited to eat the foods now that that food noise is turned down and you can actually think clearly. So really excited to jump into some of those things tonight. First, I just want to start with some of those basics. GLP-1. GLP-1 is a satiety hormone produced in your gut, and essentially it does a few different things. It increases satiety, it helps to decrease body weight, it helps with insulin secretion, it helps to increase glucose uptake. It slows gastric emptying, meaning your food isn't digested so quickly so that you feel fuller for longer. It even protects your heart. Okay. These are some of these key things that this hormone does. GLP-1 is a hormone that your gut produces naturally every time you eat. So, like I said, its job is to signal to your brain, hey, you're satisfied. You feel good. You're doing great. And then your body it helps to also absorb a little bit more complete. Just as that, okay, we're good message. All right. In some people, particularly those with obesity, that signal, that message, like say it was a text message, it starts to get a little weaker with obesity. Okay. So that signal, even though you're eating, it might not be making it saying, hey, you're full. So then you have a tendency to overeat because that signal kind of got lost along the way. Uh, so GLP-1 peptides, they work a lot longer. So a naturally produced GLP-1, it lasts minutes, okay? Where this, when you take one of our peptide therapies, it lasts an entire week rather than just minutes. So you can imagine just how much more effective this is going to be really to helping turn down that food noise, helping you feel satisfied and all of these different things. So when we look at the two medications, so we have GLP-1, and like I said, so this is produced, if you were to look at these at the bottom of the screen, these are called your epithelial cells, okay? And this is your gut lining, and I kind of think of them like my fingers. And at the top, they have these little villi, and they move food along, and things are able to get absorbed and into your bloodstream. But then also, what's going to happen is you're going to produce these satiety hormones in these epithelial cells, specifically the L and K cells, and then those are going to tell your brain that you're full. That is why people with good gut health tend to be at a healthier weight, right? They have different microbes and a better ability to produce these natural satiety hormones. All right, so that's GLP-1, and now I'm going to talk about GIP. So when you look at GLP-1, that is a semaglutide or semaglutide, okay? So that's the first one. But then when you put GLP-1 with GIP, that is a dual agonist, and that is your tirzepatide, okay? Tirzepatide actually targets two hormones instead of one, which is why it works stronger and has more impressive clinical outcomes or clinical data. However, both different peptide therapies may be more effective for different people. Even though clinically tirzepatide is shown to be more effective, there are specific reasons why a doctor might prescribe you a semaglutide. Okay, so it's not for everybody. And that's why what's so amazing here at XMD Wellness is that your practitioner will work with you, your bio individual needs, and make sure that you have whatever is the best option for your body. Okay. But typically tirzepatide does have those a little bit more significant outcomes. But I want to speak about some of these outcomes on these medications. We are seeing significant fat loss, improved insulin sensitivity, reduced systemic inflammation, and cardiovascular benefits that have really surprised even researchers on just how incredible these peptide therapies have been for people. They're very different. These peptides, they're not supplements. They're not supplements, but then they're not a band-aid. It's interesting. They sit in this kind of middle ground where they're incredibly effective. They're able to break through that blood-brain barrier and just really get in there and work, which is incredible. So we call these peptide therapies, but peptides are just small proteins that act as little chemical messengers in the bodies. GLP-1 medications are a type of peptide. So when we create these personal peptide plans, these are actually considered peptides, which I think a lot of people don't realize. Okay, so now that we have just a baseline understanding, GLP-1, GIP, semaglutide, tirzepatide, the fact that these are going to help with inflammation and fat loss and cardiovascular health and really just help you to feel better and look better and really achieve what you've maybe have been working so hard at, but just have never been able to achieve before. Uh, with XMD Wellness, everything is personalized to the patient. Okay. So your intake will guide you. The provider will personalize. So when you come on in on one of our medical weight loss peptide therapies, so that is just a regular dose, and I'll talk a little bit about dosing. That provider is going to personalize it to you. And there are some add-ons that they may add on free of charge. So if you are worried about nausea, you might get something. If you're worried about muscle, you might get something else. Maybe just your medical intake form, right? There are different add-ons that they may do specifically for you. And the dose could also be very specific to you. So all of it, like I said, is personalized. So I'm going to jump into a little bit of that. So when we look at just this standard clinical dosing, these are atypical. And I want to say typical because this is not always the case. Because it is personalized, you may be anywhere else. But this is just what we have seen as like the most typical situation is 0.25 milligrams weekly on a very, very starting dose and 2.5 weekly on a tirzepatide starting dose. Okay. These are starting doses, not microdoses. I'm not going to talk about microdosing tonight because we want to really hone in on titration, and titration is not available in microdosing. However, I want to talk about starting doses because I think a lot of people have a little bit of an outdated mindset. They think that anytime they go on a GLP-1, they're going to get side effects. We work very hard at making sure that people do not get side effects. Of course, there's always going to be some people who are more sensitive. However, with our personalized peptide titration schedule, we really work hard at making sure that this is a pleasant, very successful protocol and program for you. Okay, so these are designed for just that really initial therapy. So I want to go into our responsive titration. Okay, this is probably the section that I feel really strongly about because I think it's where a lot of programs quietly fail their patients. Titration is the process of gradually increasing your dose over time. I know this sounds so straightforward, but the how of titration makes an enormous difference in really your experience and your outcomes. Okay. So here's the analogy for this. I love analogies. I just feel like they make it easier for people to kind of grasp the concepts. But I want you to think of turning up the volume on a speaker in the room, right? If you crank it up to the max, like, I mean, you really crank it up, it's jarring, right? Like, it can hurt your brain, your ears. Like, you might even do damage to the speaker. We all know that. I just did this to my AirPods, and it has this little rattling noise, which is absolutely obnoxious. We've done it to speakers, right? Um, and so when you just crank it up, that's what can happen. But if you bring it up gradually and you find the level that is right for the room, you're going to get the best sound without distortion, without rattling, without the pain. Okay. So I want you to think of your body as really this speaker. Okay. And your practitioner is essentially the person who is going to turn it up or turn it down according to what their experience, what they are showing in your intake forms. Okay. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit about titration and why we don't just start somebody on a level 5 is because we saw with the boom of GLP-1s, we saw people who are experiencing really negative side effects because their practitioner was not making it personalized to the patient. They were just starting them on a macro max dose rather than finding out and testing the body to see really what is going to be the lowest dose with the biggest benefit. Okay. And that's always our goal. Our goal is to help you find the lowest dose that gives you all the benefits. And that is going to be different for everybody. I don't know how many people are on this call, but every single one of you could be different, right? Because you have different bio-individual needs. You have a different amount of GLP-1 naturally occurring in your gut. You have different you're in different places gut health wise, you're intaking different amounts of fiber. Like there's all these different reasons. Maybe you're in perimenopause or menopause, maybe you're postmenopausal. All of these are going to be factors in your experience. Okay. So I want you to think of so standard titration are like guidelines, okay, minimums. They just tell you the slowest you should go, not the fastest. I think a lot of programs treat a GLP-1 like a race. Get to the highest dose as quickly as possible. More is better, faster is better. We do not do that here. We practice responsive titration, and we've really even worked even over the course of the last few months um, with all of our practitioners, figuring out what are ways that we can even improve responsive titration. So one of the ways that we've even improved this just this month is split dosing. So instead of starting with just a single dose and holding it for 4 weeks for that full month, we actually have the ability now to do on week 1, week 2. Maybe you start off at the introductory dose, which we call a level 1. And if your body adjusts to it in those 2 weeks, then on week 3 and 4, we actually can step it up to a level 2 dose. And that allows us to do titration mid-month, which can be really helpful for some people. Some people, they might stay on the introductory dose longer. They might need to titrate up. They might need to titrate down, right? There's just different things that everybody's going to. But that was one of the things that we wanted to be able to do was really this split dosing mid-month so that people could, if your body was acclimated and no side effects in those first 2 weeks, then you could titrate up and maybe that was going to be the dose that would help you lose weight. Not just quicker, but just at a healthy pace. Because quicker is not always better. We still only want to lose a certain amount of weight every week. We don't want it to go too fast because when you lose weight too quickly, you do lose muscle, which I'll talk a little bit about. So week 1, 2, like I said, you might start on an introductory dose, but also, you guys, everything is going to work with your practitioner. I'm just showing you some of the ways that we practice responsive titration with all of our practitioners. And they think of really that person who is on the other side of the intake form and how can they make this the best experience for that patient. So after the first month, you move into a little bit more standard level 1 through 5 progression. And from there, your dose increase is going to be based on your response. We do not have just a fixed schedule. Everything is based on your response, and that is really why our patients see such incredible results. Is we see patients who have transferred prescriptions and they were on the exact same dose for 3 months, but that wasn't personalized because they didn't have a touch point a month in, 2 weeks in. They didn't have it, 2 months in, right? Where they could, if they needed to. And not everybody needs to titrate up. I know a lot of people personally who they didn't. They found the best benefit maybe at a level 1 or a level 2, and they stay there. And that's actually their maintenance dose, where some people, have to go up. Um, why this structure really does matter a lot is first, the side effect experience. We do not want people to experience nausea or fatigue or GI disruption. That can happen if you escalate too quickly. This step up approach gives your body more of a runway, if you will, which means a really more tolerable first month and a much higher chance that you're going to stay on the protocol because you just feel great from day one. And that's really our objective is we want long-term success. And so we really work with your body and your bio-individual needs to make sure that this is an amazing experience. Okay, you guys, so that is responsive titration. But I kind of wanted to go into a couple things that work alongside our responsive titration with our medical weight loss GLP-1 peptide plans. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I want you to do in conjunction with GLP-1 therapies, things that are really the standard. Peptides make fat loss easier. However, protein makes muscle results sustainable. So I'm going to lead into, we have 2 platforms. We have Singular, which is our nutraceutical arm, and then we have XMD, which is our peptide and small molecule arm. So we have pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals, and really marrying these together is another way that really sets XMD Wellness apart from other telehealth platforms, is we have an all-in-one approach. We want you to really have the most success possible. So these are some of the signal amplifiers. So these are some of the things that really help assist and create a foundation for peptide therapy. Number 1 is protein. You need at least 2.5 grams of leucine, which is one of the amino acids in protein, in order to trigger muscle protein synthesis. Okay. Leucine, I want you to remember it because it is absolutely worth knowing by name. It is that amino acid that is directly responsible for muscle protein synthesis through a pathway called motor. So I want you to think of leucine as really the builder, right? The builder in protein. And then we have fiber. Fiber is key in 1, just digestion, 2, prebiotics that are going to feed your microbiome, and a diverse microbiome is linked with healthy weight. And so that is another way to biohack your weight is through fiber intake. We have complete prebiotic as well as trim sticks, which are delicious. It's just a really easy way to add in fiber into your day. Movement. We do not forget lifestyle here. It's key in your success and your sustainability. We want you to move your body. We want you to get 7 to 10,000 steps a day. We want you to strength train 2 to 4 times a week. Even if it's as simple as doing squats and lunges in your living room, push-ups, sit-ups, right? Like just your body weight, just building that muscle is going to be key as you get older. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Protein really equals your metabolism because of muscle. Muscle burns 3 to 5 times more calories than fat. Higher protein equals higher thermogenesis, meaning a better metabolism. And it's going to preserve that lean mass during a caloric deficit, which is what you're going to be on a GLP-1, right? It helps you to eat less. And so you are going to be losing weight. And protein also helps to stabilize some of these satiety peptides. So I want you to look at this as your protein target when you go on to our GLP-1 peptide therapy, zero point 0.8 grams per pound of body weight to 1. So if you're 150 pounds, you need at least 120 grams of protein a day. And then if you're lifting pretty frequently, like if you're 120 pounds, you may need 120 grams of protein. Okay, so pretty simple math, but the easiest way to get that is with clear protein. It is a lemonade, like an actual, just tastes like a frosted lemonade. It's so delicious, and it's just like juice texture, and just really easy to get in that protein. One scoop equals 2.5 grams of leucine. So it's at the clinical threshold for muscle protein synthesis of your leucine. Okay. Another thing that you can do is you drink it maybe 20, 30 minutes before you eat, and it will actually reduce your meal intake by 100 to 200 calories. So it's another way to biohack your healthy weight while also helping your body to produce muscle. There are three different, I'm going to breeze over this, but muscle, I think when people think of muscle, they just think of abs and biceps and like, I'm going to have these sexy arms or whatever the case may be. Muscle is key because that's what your heart is. It's a muscle. Okay. That is, we want to make sure we're protecting our heart. Yes, that smooth muscle, but also skeletal muscle. Okay. So really, muscle is the longevity organ. It is your metabolic organ. It is so key. I cannot stress this enough. Make sure you're moving your body. So here's the really quick playbook for protein. Protein in the morning, 20 grams before meals. When you're eating like real food, usually it needs to be 30 grams in order to hit 2.5 grams of leucine. Just little protein boosters throughout the day, right? Just like a scoop, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then those micro movements. All right. The next thing I want to focus on is because on GLP-1 therapies, it slows down your digestion, which is great. It's going to help you eat less, but it can shift your digestion a little. So we want to make sure that we're assisting that. Because your gut is an endocrine organ, it produces these satiety hormones. It senses nutrients. It's going to communicate with the brain. It's going to regulate your metabolism. So we want to make sure that we're loving on our guts during this, because it is producing all of these different hormones. Okay. These signals are going to really determine fullness, blood sugar, fuel usage, fat storage, all of those kind of things. So this signaling works with your peptides. So you're having peptide therapy as well as natural peptides at the same time. And this dual approach has been shown with our XMD patients to be incredibly successful. And so that's why we want to make sure that you're really stacking these together. All right, so because your gut is really the appetite control hub, we want to make sure that your digestion is on point. Complete Probiotic is our advanced probiotic that has 3 specific targets. It has psychobiotics in it, which help to improve your mood. It has probiotic strains that actually create these satiety peptides in your gut. They help to reduce stress eating, which is incredible, and also help your body respond in a much better way to just everyday stress. And then as well as supporting your microbiome and your digestion, which is really key. It won Supplement of the Year award for its advanced technology, and it's really an incredible product that to go in conjunction with your peptide therapy. So when we look at the big picture tonight, GLP-1 medical weight loss, our GLP-1 support stack with lifestyle and movement. These 3 together are absolutely it sounds cheesy, but just life-changing. So if you have been struggling with your weight, despite honest, genuine effort, you have given it your all. If you felt like your body has just been working against you, if you've been curious about these medications, but wanted to start with real support rather than just a prescription and a prayer, if you will, then I'm really excited for you to get with whoever invited you to this call tonight and to start your intake form. Get that consultation with XMD Wellness as your first step. And really moving through this process, I don't know, it's really incredible to see that for the first time in our history, we're starting to see obesity trends the other way because of personalized peptide therapy, which I honestly did not think in my entire career I would see obesity be tackled in such an effective way as it is today with GLP-1 therapy. You guys, thank you so much for spending time with me. I'm so excited for you guys to go through the intake form, get your personalized peptide plan, join us, and once you get that, you'll get an email and it will plug you into our exclusive Facebook group that is only for XMD patients. You will also get an incredible GLP-1 peptide guide when you get your peptides that help you with the support stack and all of those different pieces. Um, you guys, let me know if you guys have any questions in the chat. I'm sure they're going through and answering some of these. We will also be adding this video to YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch it, it will be up by tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. Good night.